Our hero spent 100 years in the world of eternity, mastering magic, assassination, and necromancy. After being defeated by the ruler of that world, he suddenly finds himself trapped in a weak, cursed body. Will he be able to rise to the top again? And how will he achieve that? That is exactly what we will find out in today's story. In a place called Aedeon, a world where one does not age and is forced to fight monsters ceaselessly, the hero awoke in what is known as the playground of the gods following his death on the continent of Drea. He found himself there accompanied by others dragged in like him without knowing the reason, forced to ally with these players. Amidst a hell imposing endless fighting and immortality upon them, he fought countless battles, and spent over 100 years teetering on the edge of life and death, determined to reclaim his stolen freedom. He stood challenging the creator of this hell who made it for his own amusement, the god of Aedeon. After having eliminated the rest of his followers, he prepared himself using the necromancy skill, thinking that holding out for a brief moment would end everything. He placed a magic circle over the remaining enemies, and the magic circle unleashed a terrifying power, finishing off what remained of them. While the rest of the players failed and fell, he continued running alone to escape the hell of Aedeon. Echoes resonated in the atmosphere pleading for his help, calling him by the title of the Ghost King Ryan, begging for liberation from this torment, which solidified his certainty that killing that tyrant was the only way to gain freedom. The god of Aedeon looked down from his height and spoke the name Ryan Sermon, reciting his past as a noble from the continent of Drea whose family fell and who was taken prisoner by the Phaeton family to suffer torture for years before ending up in Aedeon after his death. He screamed at him to be silent, so the god appeared in his golden form before him, expressing admiration for his reaching the master level in the ghost, assassin, and necromancer classes within 100 years. He confronted his opponent with the truth of trapping him in this eternal battlefield and manipulating him before killing him. So the god admitted his enjoyment in that, describing him as the best, and deciding to continue playing with him for a while longer. The god surprised him with a sudden light attack that hit him and knocked him to the ground, then asked him with a terrifying smile if he had any last words, offering him one wish, but he rejected the offer coldly, confirming he had no need for it. The god of Aedeon reminded him that he had already used up his wish. He regained his memories as he was being tortured at the hands of Sans, while his body was riddled with wounds, screaming in pain with blood flowing from him. Sans found it amusing to torture him, pointing out that his clan's lineage inherits talents as if they were blessed, with the exception of him. Despite being stabbed and in severe pain, Sans noted that his life was stubborn and hard to extinguish despite being cursed and stripped of everything. He tried to speak with difficulty amidst his tears, mumbling broken words, but Sans mocked him, claiming not to understand, implying cruelly that he should have kept his tongue in its place, and expressing his boredom at not being able to extract anything of value from the Sermon lineage. Sans ordered him not to die that day, referring to their Phaeton, and explaining that he was celebrating the 3rd anniversary of the extermination of the Sermon family, as 3 full years had passed while he languished in that captivity. The Sermon family was like a fortress protecting the front lines against monsters that constantly emerge from the Dark Zone to invade the continent of Drea. Among the 5 great families on the continent of Drea, the Sermon family was considered the strongest and most famous among them. But the sudden disappearance of the father and older brothers led to the family's collapse at a terrifying speed. The Phaeton family seized that opportunity to crush them, coveting the blessing inherited in the Sermon blood, which is the dragon's blood, which grants its owner supernatural abilities, making them a 7th circle mage at the age of 10, or a swordmaster at 15. But he was not among the lucky ones with that power, inheriting instead the curse of the demon king Archon, which prevented him from learning any arts of the sword or magic. He lamented his weakness, certain that if he hadn't been cursed and possessed power, Phaeton wouldn't have been able to crush them, and he wouldn't have suffered from Sans Phaeton's brutal experiments and torture. As blood covered his desperate face, he felt that his end had come that day, and that he would finally rest. The scene returns to the present, after losing his battle with the god of Aedeon, remembering all the hardships he went through in this world. After the god promised to grant his wish, he suddenly wakes up to a voice calling him by the title, Young Master, finding himself sweating with shock on his face. He recognized with astonishment his maid Colin, who looked younger than he remembered, wondering why she was there, while she was worried about his health and him overworking himself. He wondered to himself why the nanny of the Sermon family was standing before him in her youthful appearance. So he asked her nervously and quickly to bring him a mirror. He looked in the mirror to find his reflection as a small child, so he asked Colin about today's date, and she told him it was August 17th, 1892, according to the Drea calendar. He realized with astonishment that this date meant he had returned to being 12 years old, and this time coincided in his memory with the moment his family's tragedy began. He remembered that the fall of the Sermon family began at this time at the hands of the Phaeton family, and recalled the god's words about granting the wish. While wondering if he had really returned to the past, he heard the sound of footsteps coming, and a majestic man entered, thinking the boy was feigning illness again to evade his duties. He immediately recognized the man as Alejandro, the commander of the Sermon Knights, who in turn noticed the boy's pale face. So he allowed him to skip today's training, Colin tried to intervene anxiously, but he stopped the commander and smiled confidently, confirming he was fine. He asked about the content of today's training, and Alejandro was surprised by his refusal to rest, explaining that the training was dedicated to longsword footwork. The commander stared at him suspiciously and asked if he was really the young master, so he confirmed his identity as Ryan Sermon without a doubt. He decided within himself that the reason for his return, whether it was a wish or turning back time, didn't matter now, and surprised everyone by asking to skip basic training and head directly to hunt monsters, while a blue aura surrounded him. He was certain that this was his chance to correct everything, and he activated the status window to see that he was at level 1 and still carried the Arcane Curse of Rank, SS, preventing him from gathering mana. He felt relieved that his ability to use this unique power, possessed by no one else on the continent, persisted even after going back in time. Alejandro returned again to announce that he had prepared the monster for him to fight. He arrived at the training ground, and a goblin appeared before him screaming savagely. The monster tried to attack him, but it was tied to the wooden post. So Colin screamed in terror, begging the Knight Commander to stop the fight, reminding him that the young master usually fainted just at the sight of a goblin. But he was thinking that her words were true for him yesterday, not for who he is now. He realized the difference clearly at that moment, as system warnings rang in his mind announcing the activation of the Arcane Curse, which began to forcibly amplify his fear of monsters. He realized then that this unjustified terror was nothing but part of the demonic curse's effect. Alejandro noticed his tension and suggested calling it a day for training, but he rejected that idea immediately, refusing to give up, and rushed towards the bound goblin. But he stopped suddenly out of fear, and screamed internally to maintain his composure, reminding himself that he was no longer that weakling from the past, and that his opponent was just a lone goblin. He sharpened his resolve, confirming his ability to face it, for compared to the horror he lived before that divine entity, this curse seemed trivial and insignificant. He lunged with a strong strike of his wooden sword, amidst the commander's astonishment and Nanny Colin's shock at what their eyes were seeing. At that moment, a system notification appeared announcing the regression of the curse's rank after he managed to overcome it through an experience that exceeded its limits, causing his feeling of fear to vanish completely. He turned confidently towards the commander, asking for a real sword, and while Colin tried to express her concern, the commander handed the sword to the boy, whose face bore a bold smile. The Knight Commander saw in that stance proof that the young master had truly become a man. He advanced towards the goblin with all courage and determination, to finish off the trembling monster with a decisive blow. The commander saw in him a ray of hope shining to save the crumbling Sermon family, inviting Colin to watch the scene, confirming without a doubt that this boy is the true heir and future leader of the family. After the fight ended, he stood washing his face, concluding that the status window and the system's help were effective in aiding him to conquer the curse, which confirmed to him the possibility of growing his power. He noticed his experience points increased, but showed annoyance at their meager amount, realizing that at this rate he would need to kill thousands of monsters to raise his level. He felt the need to hurry, as the day when screams would fill the Sermon household was imminent. Despite that, he remained holding on to the fact that he could break Arcane's curse, determined not to miss this opportunity no matter the cost. He assessed the Sermon family's current situation, recalling that 2 years had passed since his father and older brothers disappeared. Despite the precarious situation, the family still maintained its status as one of the great houses, as the enemies hadn't started their schemes yet. And since he had verified the first method to raise his level through fighting, a confident smile appeared on his face. Resolving to verify the second method, he headed to meet the woman with red hair and a blue mask. She initiated the conversation, mentioning she heard the news of him hunting the goblin, wondering disapprovingly if he had summoned her for magic training. That woman was Sina, commander of the magic corps in the Sermon family, a grand mage of the 7th Circle whose power rivals Alejandro's. She is a mysterious figure whose truth is known only to the family head, and she warned him against arrogance just for killing a weak monster. Sina reminded him that magic training differs from the sword, and that Arcane's curse stripped him of any talent to sense mana or academic excellence. He admitted knowing that fact and that his body was incapable of sensing energy. But he surprised her that this was his state only until yesterday, challenging her by asking if she doubted his ability to sense mana. Signs of astonishment appeared on her face. To verify his claim, she drew a magic formation and allowed him to open his eyes. She told him she drew an image that could only be seen through mana. He stared ahead with focus while she asked him to identify what she drew. He answered clearly that he saw a beautiful red dragon, which struck Sina with a shock that silenced her tongue. She confirmed the correctness of his vision with a stammer and denied that he was mistaken. She wondered with amazement how this radical change occurred, especially since she had placed camouflage mechanisms to make the drawing look like something else, meaning his understanding of mana rivaled her level. She inquired about how he broke the family curse even though she had previously only taught him how to sense. He called her by her name, confessing that although he sensed mana, he was unable to use the cultivation method inherited in the family, asking for her help with that. Sina explained that mana cultivation is essential to raise one's level, pointing to his previous attempt. But she warned him seriously about the danger of his request, because channeling mana meant tearing the energy pathways in his body, placing his life and death entirely in her hands. He met her warning with a sarcastic smile, asking if she intended to kill him, pointing out his inability to resist her anyway, but he confirmed she was the only person he could ask this of. He recalled in his memory the events of his past life and the attack they were subjected to. where Sina fought fiercely to protect him despite running out of energy and her body being shattered. She kept protecting him until the end as his subordinate. He returned to his reality looking at her with eyes full of certainty, telling her he trusted her more than anyone else. He took off his shirt in preparation for Sina to announce the start of the process. Sina watched with amazement his learning speed, noticing he had already started using the blue earth technique to channel mana even though she had only explained the theory to him, a technique inherited only by the direct lineage of the family. Within himself, he attributed this mastery to his previous training with this method in the world of Aedeon to raise his level and abilities. Sina asked him for total focus, warning him of severe pain he might feel, and stressing the necessity of not making any sound or moving violently. Sina emphasized that he should seriously consider stopping if the pain became unbearable, and as soon as the pain began to course through his body, he remembered the pain he suffered while being tortured by Sans in his past life. He reproached her, asking if she didn't trust him, so Sina confirmed she understood what he wanted and pumped more mana into his body. Suddenly, system warnings went off announcing the activation of the Archon Curse, causing the mana trapped inside his body to disperse and scatter. Sina realized the curse worked exactly as the family had described, but she had expected this beforehand. Sina decided to pump more mana into his body, igniting a confrontation between the curse trying to disperse the energy and Sina's mana trying to conquer it. Amidst successive system notifications seen only by him, it seemed to him the result was decided in favor of the curse, while Sina was bleeding and suffering, realizing that even the mana of a 7th Circle Grand Mage was unable to conquer this maximum grade curse. At that decisive moment, he decided to apply Aedeon's special training method, determined to make the curse tearing the mana rebound upon itself, trapping the dispersion range inside his body. He succeeded in tricking the curse and kept the mana trapped inside him while his body glowed with energy. So Sina noticed with astonishment that the dispersed mana did not leave her young master's body. System notifications followed confirming his resistance to the Archon Curse, and the resistance continued successfully. He felt burning heat and pain igniting along the mana movement pathways. But he refused to surrender to this pain, drawing his strength from the fact that he endured similar pains thousands of times as the master player in Aedeon. He was confident that his understanding of mana surpassed anyone else, because this understanding was etched in his soul, not just his body. He mocked Archon, the demon king he had never seen, considering his curse negligible compared to that so-called god of Aedeon. The curse cracked and shattered under his will, and he fell to the ground, amidst Sina's screams calling out to him. As his consciousness faded from the intensity of the pain, he reassured himself that he was fine, comparing this pain to what he suffered in his previous life, remembering when he was a captive of the Phaeton family subjected to limb amputation and regeneration experiments. One of the men suggested getting rid of the prisoner quickly and returning to the Phaeton family, considering this the optimal solution to the pitiful situation. At that moment, the blade of a hidden warrior slashed through, cutting down Phaeton's men, causing the guards' shouts to rise, warning of intruders and demanding to stop them amidst the utter chaos. He suddenly found himself lying in the open under the moonlight, wondering with astonishment how he reached the outside, only to hear a faint voice asking if he was conscious. Alejandro appeared before him covered in blood, apologizing with deep regret for his delay in arriving. He realized then that the Knight Commander had indeed come to save him. Alejandro, with a face full of pain, repeated his apology to his young master, while his body seemed weighed down by arrows that had pierced him. He couldn't control himself and exploded into a hysterical crying scream. He woke up in his bed in the present with tears wetting his face, recalling that painful memory. He wondered if the mana cultivation process had succeeded, but his joy vanished immediately due to the nightmare of the past haunting his sleep. Despite that, he reassured himself that tragedy would not repeat because he now possessed the means to change destiny, stressing the necessity of keeping this means a secret from everyone. He realized he had to exercise the utmost caution, especially with the Phaeton family known for its high vigilance, admitting he still lacked the necessary power to confront them. Therefore, he decided his next step must be accelerating the apparent collapse of the Sermon family as part of his plan. He painted an artificial smile on his face before Sina and Alejandro, claiming with regret that he failed in the mana purification method, which sparked Sina's astonishment and denial. Silence and disappointment hung over the room, while he thought internally that he wasn't hiding the secret out of a desire to deceive, but because he doubted the truth would benefit them or that they would believe it in the first place. He justified his attempt by saying he wanted to meet everyone's high expectations, but the result was failure, confirming to Sina that he felt not a speck of mana in his body currently, inviting her to check for herself if she wanted. Sina didn't believe what he said, and asked permission to verify herself. Sina tried using mana detection magic to confirm, but she was shocked by the complete disappearance of the energy trace, muttering in disbelief that the mana had truly vanished. She kept assuring herself she clearly sensed the mana flow in his body yesterday, and left the place staggering from the intensity of shock and confusion. Alejandro tried to comfort his master, asking him not to feel great disappointment, reminding him of his success in hunting the monster as motivation to focus on sword training. He replied that he wouldn't be able to repeat that experience again due to the terrible pain that made even eating difficult, as Nanny Colin heard. Alejandro was shocked by that reply, and his hopes were completely shattered. 2 months later, Colin stands in front of his room. Colin thinks with sadness that the young master continued his isolation inside his room for the next day in a row. She adds that in the absence of the family head, The madam strove to preserve the family legacy, but her powers had begun to run out against the increasing pressures. One of the servants asked Nanny Colin if her master had stayed in his room again, and she confirmed it with regret. The servant commented that 3 months had passed since the monster defeated him in the training ground, and rumors spread that he no longer listened even to the commander's instructions. Another servant adds that a sudden change in a person's nature might be a bad omen or death, considering what happened merely a fleeting dream. Colin defended him sharply, confirming he did his best that day to live up to everyone's expectations. But she was shocked when the servant told her he is nicknamed the disgrace of the Sermon family and the delinquent, not just inside the palace, but throughout the kingdom of Darren entirely. Despite Colin feeling the cruelty of this judgment on a 12-year-old child, the servant explained that disappointment is equal to expectations, especially for a crumbling noble family. With increasing staff resignations, the servant announced he would leave as well by the end of the month, and asked Colin about her intention. In his room, he noticed the decline in food quality, deducing the family's financial situation had reached a critical stage. But instead of worry, a sly smile appeared on his face, considering everything was going according to his plan. If he were his past self, he would have spent the remaining wealth in desperate attempts. But now with Aedion's experience, he realizes he must wait. He decided to remain static to make his enemies lower their defenses, awaiting the right moment to pounce on them. The collapse began with the disappearance of the family head, followed by the failure of search campaigns that drained the remaining strength and resources. The training grounds that once bustled with life became empty, containing only a few incompetent knights and unenthusiastic servants. Even the vassals who courted the family turned their backs and fled after seeing the disaster. This isolation allowed him the freedom to pretend to lock himself up, but he felt the pace of collapse was slower than it should be, so he decided to push more to accelerate the family's apparent fall. Suddenly, Colin burst into his room energetically, announcing training time and the commander's insistence on seeing him. He tried to evade showing his desire to rest, but she surprised him by pulling the covers off him, and she carried him like a small child amidst his astonishment. Colin announced with determination that she would never leave the Sermon family, which made him smile awkwardly at this embarrassing situation. In the training ground, Commander Alejandro scolded his young master on how he held the sword, trying to encourage him that failing to sense mana once doesn't mean the end, and that sword training would make mana flow naturally. Features of anger appeared on Alejandro's face seeing him hide again, noting they hadn't given up yet. In contrast, he was burning with enthusiasm to repay their loyalty, but he insisted on keeping his knight training a secret, using the body control skill he learned in Aedion, an assassination technique that deceives others regarding the body's condition, which had already been partially activated. System notifications followed announcing an increase in experience points, endurance, and strength by 1 point. While he tried to hide it, claiming he needed to go to the bathroom suddenly, Alejandro was confused and tried calling him. While he noticed his control over the skill was still unstable and broke upon sudden movement, he opened the status window to find he reached level 3, with marked improvement in strength, agility, endurance, and mana, and the curse rank dropped to B. He rejoiced at this smooth progress after 3 months of secret training, planning to focus on raising his level significantly once his stats reached 20, setting his sights on obtaining the ghost profession first as he did in Aedion, then developing the necromancer and assassin skills. His thinking was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected guest with Alejandro. The guest was Truno Held, the head butler of the Sermon family, who apologized for the interruption. He realized the situation differed from what happened before he turned back time, but the timing clearly pointed to the content of the letter he carried. He began reading the letter's content in front of Alejandro. The letter's contents were an invitation to attend the birthday party of the second prince of the Kingdom of Darren, Kyle Darren, in December 1892. He remembered that day was the final piece in the puzzle of the Sermon family's fall. He yawned with boredom while in the carriage on his way to the birthday party. So Truno asked if he had just woken up, pointing to his deep sleep throughout the journey, while he justified it by Colin staying up late to choose his clothes. He remembered how excited Colin was preparing clothes befitting an entry to the capital and how she insisted on accompanying him. Truno expressed his understanding, given that Alejandro and Sina would not accompany him. He was surprised by the timing of the appearance of a massive horde of monsters, and he too wondered about that timing. The primary role of the Sermon family is preventing monsters of the Dark Zone from crossing to the continent of Drea, and Alejandro had been sent to the border to deal with that. As for Sina, she left upon an urgent request from his mother who manages family affairs in the husband's absence, and there was no room for refusal. Thus, a 12-year-old child finds himself representing his family in the capital, while Truno seeks to reassure him that there is nothing to worry about, and that no one in the Kingdom of Darren dares to touch the direct lineage of Sermon. He thought to himself that this was true in the past. Previously, sending a servant to congratulate was enough, but now with the decline of the family's status, the personal attendance of the family head became mandatory. He admitted to himself his responsibility for this situation, but considered it part of his plan. The procession arrived at the royal capital, Darbin, and he stepped out of the carriage in front of a crowd of greeters. Prince Kyle welcomed him with a smile, calling him the Dragon of Drea. The second prince of the Kingdom of Darren, Kyle Darren, appeared with features bearing cunning and confidence. Truno exchanged greetings with him formally, expressing honor at the invitation and thanks for the hospitality received from the kingdom. He was cynical about the concept of that hospitality, recalling his journey from the city gate to the royal palace. where he clearly felt looks of pity and concern cast by citizens towards the crumbling Sermon family carriage. He noticed that rumors describing him as a troublemaker and desperate had successfully spread, and that everyone was talking about the reality of his family's fall. He also clearly sensed looks of contempt and hidden mockery in the noble's eyes, but that only increased his confidence, so he smiled in secret, confirming to himself that everything was going exactly according to plan. He welcomed the second prince with a voice full of hesitation and shyness, while wondering to himself if he should continue playing along with their rhythm. On the other side, the escorts and guards were grumbling, pointing out they arrived a full week before the party, yet he hadn't left his room for 5 days. They expressed their displeasure at losing the chance to interact with other envoys, mocking the young master for being so shy he was unable to greet nobles properly. Their complaints escalated about not being able to enjoy the festivities held at the palace, including food, drink, and women, due to being stuck with him. Their grumbling was cut off by a colleague entering panting, bringing them good news that the young master finally decided to attend today's banquet. He asked his escorts to get ready as well, so their faces lit up with joy, and they celebrated the chance to finally attend the banquet. But the joy was conditional, as he asked them to keep the matter secret until the event time, and tell no one, not even Truno. Despite some worry about lack of readiness, their desire to attend the party overshadowed any other fears. He thought his appearance would calm his escort's complaints. Taking advantage of the past days he spent training freely without distractions, he confirmed to himself that his attendance at the banquet wasn't just to appease the escorts, but because he had a much bigger goal he sought to achieve. Outside, a luxurious carriage arrived from which a young man with white hair and red clothes stepped out, announcing in his mind the arrival of Sans Faton. Shouts rang out announcing the entry of young master Sans Faton, who walked with confident steps amidst the attendees. Truno welcomed Sans, telling him that Sans coming personally would come as a shock to Prince Kyle. Sans approached Truno with a malicious smile, indicating his knowledge of the Sermon family's arrival first, and asking sarcastically about the whereabouts of the famous Ryan Sermon. Truno was confused by this question, while Sans continued his mockery, claiming everyone must have heard the news, intending the news of the Sermon family's fall and his story. At that moment, Truno was assessing him, acknowledging that Sans is a talented mage who reached the 5th circle at 15, backed by his great family's expectations. Truno denounced that someone dared insult the Sermon family in the banquet hall of the Mother Kingdom, but Sans quickly confirmed with a malicious smile that rumors describing him as the biggest scum on the continent couldn't be true, demanding punishment for whoever spread them for defaming a noble family's reputation. Truno thought to himself angrily, pointing to Sans's history of drinking alcohol since age 7 and killing a commoner at 12, wondering how someone like him dared insult the Sermon family. At that moment, the Chamberlain announced loudly the entry of Ryan Sermon, Dragon of Drea and young master of the Sermon family. Astonishment prevailed in the hall, and Truno wondered about the reason for his sudden exit after locking himself in his room. He entered in elegant clothes and a confident appearance, completely different from the rumors spread about him. The attendees whispered with admiration, pointing to his dignified appearance suggesting no fall of the family and confirming that the noble Sermon blood cannot be hidden. Sans noticed the attention shifting away from him and the spotlight returning to Ryan once the name Sermon was mentioned, which sparked his anger and intense jealousy. He advanced towards Sans confidently, asking if he was Sans Faton, mentioning he heard a lot about him from his brother Ras. The atmosphere tensed at the mention of Raz, the missing 4th son of the Sermon family. Sans replied coldly that he also knew many stories. He continued provoking him, reminding Sans that they studied together at the academy, and that everyone there certainly heard about Sans's rumors, even though he left after a few months. Sans felt angry and called him a bastard. He pressed more, pointing to Sans's bullying incident of a student and harassing a female student. He tried to recall more details, asking about the knee story. Truno intervened quickly to calm the situation, saying Sans brought good medicine for Raz when he suffered knee pain. Then he grabbed his hand, telling him there was something the Knight Commander told him that he forgot to mention, then pulled him away, asking him to follow. This talk sparked Sans's furious anger, remembering a past insult that shouldn't be revealed. He looked at him angrily, realizing he was threatening him. He whispered to himself, inciting him to get angrier, considering in secret that Sans's anger is a crucial seed for his plan. Later, Sans cursed his opponent. Remembering when he told him everyone knows the rumors about him and that his brother Ras had told him a lot about him, Sans confirmed that Ras knew what happened, and how he didn't just leave the academy, but was expelled, and his family used its influence to silence him and prevent the scandal from leaking, especially the humiliating knee story. He went back in his memory to that humiliating moment when he knelt to Raz. Sans tried to control his nerves with difficulty, panting from the intensity of anger and fear. Meanwhile, Ras appeared emitting a powerful aura, announcing coldly that Sans had crossed a line he should never have crossed. In the midst of those moments, Sans recalled a painful memory from the past, where he appeared stammering in his justifications before Raz, claiming he didn't know the girl was his girlfriend, trying to convince him he only sought to show kindness towards a commoner student who entered the academy. but Raz interrupted him firmly, reminding him the girl was their colleague in the academy regardless of her origin, scolding him for using magic to harm a student, before ordering him with a tone brooking no argument to kneel immediately and ask for her forgiveness sincerely, threatening him with dire consequences if he didn't. Raz's features froze with a terrifying look as he threatened, while Sans knelt humiliated under the weight of the blue magical aura released by Raz, who swore he would abandon his family name and kill him if necessary. Sans returned to his current reality screaming madly, holding his head from the intensity of rage and frustration possessing him, trying to control his nerves and remind himself of the necessity to move forward with his plan, resolving that even if he failed to take revenge on Raz, he must at least silence his younger brother. He wiped the sweat from his face and a malicious smile appeared on his lips, vowing a cruel fate awaited him soon. Meanwhile, knocking was heard on the door, so Sans permitted the knocker to enter, and the head butler, Truno Held, entered the luxurious cabin, while Sans commented sarcastically on this secret meeting, bringing him together with a figure of unexpected weight in the middle of the night. While the carriage was making its way, he was reviewing the party events in his mind, certain everything went exactly as he planned. He succeeded in shedding the image of the hateful rumor-monger, and brilliantly played the role of the smart but unlucky family heir, lacking knight and mage talents, making Sans Faton swallow the bait completely. Truno cut his train of thought, admitting the young master's behavior at the banquet was amazing, and instilled in him a feeling that the flame of hope within the Sermon family hadn't extinguished yet. Although he failed to build relationships with nobles and even instigated a conflict with the Phaeton family, Truno retracted his speech, expressing euphoria at seeing his master's actions in front of Sans Faton, while looking at him with piercing eyes. He suddenly activated a spell, surprising Truno, who asked the reason for his action. Truno was surprised he activated sound isolation inside the carriage, then he repeated to Truno's ears his previous words about the flame of hope not extinguishing, confronting him with a shocking truth, that if he truly believed those words, he wouldn't have chosen to betray the Sermon family in the first place. Truno's face paled and he sweated while he described his crimes as dangerous and unforgivable. Truno asked with a trembling voice what he meant, but he corrected himself, saying those crimes might be forgivable for one reason, which is that he committed them for the family's interest. Truno asked with astonishment how much his master knew, so he answered he knew it was inevitable, and for that reason he would give him another chance. He asked him to listen well to what he would say, and leave the judgment to himself as he always used to. Truno's heartbeat accelerated listening to his master's plan, wondering with astonishment how he could think of something like this. With the details following, the head butler's shock increased, unable to comprehend how he planned all this, wondering about the truth of this boy. Truno covered his face with his hands, possessed by sweeping emotions making him feel an overwhelming desire to cheer for his master at that moment. He watched him calmly, telling him he already knew the choice he would take, because Truno Held had already deviated from the usual royal path. At that moment, Truno looked at his young master with astonishment, thinking how this child could smile with that confidence knowing exactly what is coming. Truno denied within himself that the expression on his master's face was a smile, but was certain it was a brutal killing intent that chilled the spine. At that moment the carriage stopped suddenly, prompting the knight to ask the reason. The knight noticed the driver had fallen dead. He realized they fell into a trap, as the knight screamed warning of poison, announcing the start of a tight ambush. Mana-infused arrows rained down towards the carriage, so the commanders screamed to protect the carriage, ordering mages to activate defensive barriers immediately. The guard commander was surprised by the enemy's audacity to attack the Sermon family, ordering his knights to subdue the enemies at once. Amidst the chaos, the commander warned against approaching the carriage recklessly so they wouldn't fall by friendly fire or enemies' swords intertwined with them. But the biggest shock came when they discovered the young master had disappeared from inside the carriage. Astonishment prevailed, and the guard commander asked what was happening. Seeing a horse dashing away carrying a masked person, it was Truno, and with him was he, while the horse devoured the ground. System notifications followed before his eyes, stating the activation of darkness effects, sense anomaly, and physical deterioration. He wondered about the time passed, noticing the status effect spells were far more than required, deducing the Sermon family guards must be in a frenzy now. He replayed his memory tape, remembering that in his past life he was kidnapped in such an incident, and his family exerted all efforts and wealth searching for him as the only remaining heir, leading to the collapse of the family's wealth and its rapid fall. But this time, he decided to use the incident to his advantage, move its timing, and adapt it to serve his goals, making this kidnapping a means to consolidate the idea of collapse. Earlier, he told Truno the family situation reached a critical stage, and if he showed his pursuit to save it now, other noble families would feel threatened and unite to crush them. For this reason, he deliberately spread rumors of the omen of Sermon to appear as a weak heir posing no threat, pushing his opponents to lower their defenses. Despite that, he knew the Phaeton family was an exception, as they would seek to crush Sermon's seeds no matter what, so he decided to exploit this hostility, especially after Sans Phaeton fell into the trap of his provocation. Certain the ideal moment for their move is now during their return from the capital. He said it would be better with an internal collaborator. He directed his question to Truno, whether he would make this incident the peak of the family's fall, or a signal to start the plan of resurrecting it anew. In the present, the system notification rang announcing that magic statistics and the Blue Earth technique were successfully resisting negative status effects. He was reassured that everything was going according to plan up to this point, but he was surprised by Truno's voice apologizing to him with regret while calling him young master. Ryan ordered his subordinate Truno to move precisely according to the drawn plan, assuring him this commitment is his only way to gain forgiveness for what he committed. At that moment, system notifications rang announcing the success of magic stats in resisting negative status effects and increasing by 1 point, followed by another notification stating all stats reached 20, leading to the automatic unlocking of the senses stat. He felt internal satisfaction, considering the first growth condition was successfully completed thereby. Under the bright moonlight, Sans Fatan praised Truno for his hard work, while expressing his surprise at Truno's personal attendance to complete the deal, given that the matter was merely selling his own subordinate soldiers. Truno replied with stinging sarcasm, describing Sans's words as harsh, saying he likened him to a dog biting its master and demanding he accept the consequences silently as long as he chose the path of betrayal. Then Sans revealed the price, explaining that the information in his possession was documented and provided by the Asanga family. Truno doubted the credibility of the information, but Sans reminded him of the Asanga family's prestigious status on the continent of Dria and their wide fame in the field of assassinations. In addition to information trading being their main business, making their sale of false information impossible, he explained that the scroll contained confirmed sightings of the missing direct heirs of the Sermon family. Ryan realized deep down that this was the true reason behind Truno's betrayal of the family. The head butler sold an incompetent direct heir like him for the sake of finding the missing older brothers capable of truly leading the Sermon family. He was certain that even if the information was available with a Sangha, Truno wouldn't have been able to obtain it because the Phaeton family would have beaten him to it and paid a much higher price with their immense wealth. Sans ended the meeting coldly, announcing the end of Truno's mission and calling him a traitor. The latter reminded him of the necessity of fulfilling his promise. Sans pledged to return the soldiers who were sold to the Sermon family without harm, with a sly smile. As the procession moved away, a subordinate asked if they should get rid of Truno, but he refused, considering his return posed no danger because his fate was inevitably failure. He was certain that the Sermon family had now realized Truno was the cause of the disaster and that his return was necessary to execute his grand plan correctly, announcing the completion of all preparations. Sans decided to handle Ryan himself and entered with the intention of gloating. He woke him from his coma with sarcastic words, asking him if he had started to grasp his current situation. He couldn't help laughing seeing the direct heir of the Sermon family in that miserable state of weakness and humiliation. Ryan feigned confusion and asked Sans what he was doing, so the latter mocked him for not understanding the situation despite its clarity, pointing out that he had kidnapped the revered lineage of the Sermon family. He tried to threaten him, asking if he realized the consequences of his deed, but he burst out laughing, mocking the threat attempt, and he reminded him sarcastically of his previous stance at the banquet. He approached him, noting that he seemed to have heard some stories from his brother Ras, then caught him off guard with a sudden attack. He rained punches and kicks on him brutally, wishing his father and brothers had all died and disappeared, punishing him for daring to challenge the Phaeton family. While he was receiving the blows with his eyes shining with a mysterious glint, Sans screamed at him, revealing the truth of his arrival here. He was surrounded by guards and protected inside his carriage, but Truno was the one who sold him. He explained to him cruelly that he was sold for just one piece of information about his brothers. He spread his arms gloatingly, assuring him that no one in this world could save him now. He grabbed his fist, explaining to him with a demonic smile that what would happen next is a grinding war between the Phaeton family and the Sermon family, and that this kidnapping operation is the cornerstone of that war. While blood was flowing from his mouth, he called him a fool who wouldn't stop prattling. Suddenly, his eyes bulged with astonishment, shocked when he saw a strange smile appear on his victim's face. When a bright green magic circle activated around him, the magic circle surrounded him, and Ryan announced with a piercing look that he had waited for this specific moment since his return to the continent of Dria, leaving him stammering from the intensity of the shock. Sans examined his body in panic, wondering what was happening and why he felt nothing, then mistakenly thought all this commotion was just a desperate trick to gain a few extra seconds. Ryan smiled at him, called him stupid, and reminded him that he told him earlier he talks too much. He tried to reply to him, but a magic circle appeared around his neck, and he quickly grabbed his throat in real panic when he discovered his voice had disappeared completely and he was unable to speak. At that moment, he revealed to him coldly that what he did was activate the magic silence circle, which completely seals high circle magic. While he was choking on his silence trying to comprehend the situation, Ryan mocked him, asking how it felt to be a mage unable to recite chants. Sans tried desperately to gather mana, realizing his only option was to use magic that didn't require chants like Firebolt. Restricted by the limits of the third circle and his father's strict orders not to kill him, he launched his fire attack, but Ryan faced him steadily, considering that was his fatal mistake, although he was prepared to break his leg as a toll and that his father wouldn't be angry if he did so. A system notification appeared to announce his success in resisting the Firebolt spell. He addressed his opponent sarcastically, pointing out that his resort to a third circle spell was a regrettable waste of his last chance. Sans's face paled and he sweated. He tried to attack him again, but Ryan replied that he refused to just receive attacks. While Sans's hand glowed with intense blue mana, he activated mana dispersion through blue magic circles. dissipating his magic in its cradle, and describing him as a fool because any magic at a specific level would be immediately nullified before him. Sans concluded he couldn't use magic, so he took out a dagger to fight with it. A smile of victory and confidence appeared on Ryan's face as he shattered the iron shackles binding him with a single blow. He asked the stunned man if he was surprised, explaining that breaking chains had become child's play for him, and revealing that his surprise didn't stop at just 2 magic circles. He activated the 3rd circle, paralysis, shocking Sans's body with violent electric flashes that made him scream in pain and terror. In the end, he stood proudly over him while he lay motionless on the ground, ordering him to wake up and look around, announcing coldly that the roles had completely turned this time. He regained consciousness slowly to find him sitting coldly before him, toying with a dagger in his hand, where he initiated by mocking him, noting he took so long in his coma that he considered waking him himself, and praising sarcastically the quality of the dagger he possessed. Sans realized immediately upon waking that he was bound by iron chains hanging from the ceiling, and was surprised by his ability to speak, discovering the restraints were just ordinary iron chains and not mana-sealing restraints, causing him to call Ryan stupid for leaving a mage without magical restraints. He tried to seize the opportunity immediately and cast the Windblade spell to free himself, but the result was a resounding scream of pain echoing in the place instead of his liberation, while Ryan asked him coldly who the stupid one was now. While his body trembled with pain, he noticed strange glowing green lines covering him entirely, telling him that he had already drawn magic circles on his entire body using the dagger while he was unconscious. Shock possessed Sans as he listened to his explanation of this forbidden art consisting of carving magic circles directly onto the flesh to form permanent scars, which is known as the blood circle. He explained to him that this process is done while the victim is forcibly awake via an awakening spell, reminding him that this is exactly what he did in the past when he carved scars with his dagger on the body of a 12-year-old child. He asked with terror and stammering how he knew this forbidden spell, especially since reports confirmed his inability to use mana, while Ryan attributed that within himself to the memories of his previous life and his experience in the world of Aedeon. 3 months ago, after acquiring the mana linking method, he focused on raising the level of the concealment skill first, and acquiring other skills wasn't difficult thanks to the secret of magic circles he learned in Aedeon. For every skill possesses its own circle, and is activated by pumping mana into that unique circle, and only those who reach the rank of master player can see these circles. And he still remembers every circle for every skill he acquired previously, so he didn't need study or repeated training, he only needed mana and qualifications. And once available, he obtained the skill immediately, which enabled him to sneak out of the Sermon Palace stealthily using the concealment skill. Thanks to remembering every detail of this warehouse, he had set up traps and prepared skills beforehand to entrap Sans Phaton. Ryan thanked his opponent for his easy entry into the trap, explaining that the magic circle he activated was originally intended to multiply the pain Sans intended to inflict on him, advising him to worry about the amount of pain he would feel now. His hysterical screams broke out, and he kept asking him to stop. After a while, he waved his blood-stained dagger, suggesting ending the matter, making Sans, who was panting from pain, think the torture was over, and started thanking him. But Ryan interrupted him with a terrifying smile, refusing that. Sans began threatening him that he wouldn't give him any chance because the Phaeton family men would arrive soon, obliging him to flee now. He pinpointed their arrival time accurately as 1 week later, sparking his astonishment and question about how he knew that. Ryan revealed to him that he knew he deliberately delayed the return for a full week to enjoy torturing him alone, and that he ordered his men to return after that period elapsed. Sans realized then that Ryan was never unconscious inside the carriage, and tried to dodge, claiming his men would arrive any minute. He mocked his lie, asking if Phaeton's men would warn him before their arrival. He concluded that if he were truthful about their imminent arrival, he would have remained silent and begged for his life to ensure his survival until help arrived to kill him. He ended his speech by identifying the comers accurately, who are the direct elite unit of his clan, known as Phaeton's Fingers. He confirmed to his victim that the comers are indeed the direct elite unit of his clan, known as Phaeton's Fingers, while Sans was screaming, confirming that everything he said was real. Ryan continued beating him, and cries of pain rose from him, before deciding to stop at that point for that night in adherence to his promise, ordering him sarcastically to continue his wailing. Sans screamed his name angrily, while the latter began preparing himself to receive the coming guests. He was fully aware that facing the Phaeton family elite after a week allowed no single error. After a week passed, the attackers received the arrival signal, and began discussing the passage of a full week since the kidnapping of the Sermon heir's young master and his entry into the place without any contact. They wondered with astonishment at the lack of any attempt to negotiate throughout that period. Despite their confirmation of strictly monitoring the passages, their commander expressed his annoyance, showing concern about the possibility of an accident because perhaps he indulged too much in the torture game, reminding his men that the family head's orders dictate bringing the sermon boy alive. The commander decided to storm the place alone amidst his followers' amazement, explaining strictly that the first loyalty of Phaeton's Fingers is to the family head's orders, which supersede even the safety of the Phaeton lineage itself. He smashed the gate with the power of his magic, announcing his solo entry, ordering his men to wait outside so as not to be a hindrance to him. Once inside, he sensed a suspicious and strange atmosphere, where there was an ominous presence but without any trace of mana. Suddenly, Magic traps triggered firing arrows and projectiles, so the commander dodged them with difficulty and rushed to activate a magic barrier for protection. He realized then that the situation was worse than he expected and that harm had befallen Sans, so he activated the Detect Traps spell. He was stunned by the precision of traps connected to complex magic circles, indicating the perpetrator's skill and precise knowledge of the place's structure. He wondered in confusion who the perpetrator was who planted traps in every corridor. Was it the Sermon family or a third party? The commander faced more attacks, so he activated Double Barrier, announcing his patience ran out, and he had no time to play. He threatened the unknown attacker with regret for provoking one of Phaeton's fingers. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a horrific scene of a person bound and covered in blood. He recognized with shock the young Master Sans amidst the blood, and rushed to cut the chains to free him. He asked his master with a trembling voice what happened. While examining the bloody body, he confirmed from the mana remnants that this was Sans Phaeton without a doubt, and stood stunned, wondering with horror about the truth of what happened in this place. The commander rushed to inspect Sans's condition, asked to bring a healing potion quickly, but the commander insisted on the necessity of getting him out of the place first. He warned of the danger of staying because the enemy hadn't revealed himself yet, pointing to the many traps that obstructed their way. While assessing the situation, he deduced that the enemy managed to subdue the young master and bind him, but didn't take him with him, which led him to think that rescue wasn't the perpetrator's only goal. The commander was certain he was just bait, but insisted on not abandoning his mission. Suddenly Sans opened his eyes weakly, and muttered broken words indicating that Ryan Sermon was the one who did this to him. Confirming his identity with a weak voice, the commander was shocked when he heard that. Immediately, the commander decided to use Total Bind magic from the 7th circle to ensure the boy didn't move, resolving to rob his will and scatter his body and mind. But he was surprised by a mocking voice coming from behind him, describing him as overly cautious, seeing him hanging upside down. Before the commander could comprehend the situation, Ryan launched a fireball, prompting the commander to mock the use of illusion magic. But soon the commander felt severe pain resulting from mana rebound, as he was forced to cancel the 7th circle spell before its completion. He mocked him, pointing to the pain of magic rebound, but added that a great mage like him would recover quickly. He gave advice to the commander that he should have dealt with him first if he noticed something strange upon entering the room. The commander flew into a rage at Ryan daring to use illusions against him, the master of illusion magic, so he screamed, ordering the illusions to disperse. The illusions he created dispersed, and he was forced to rush towards him, to face him face to face. But the commander managed to land a powerful kick, hitting him in the face, and asked him sarcastically if he thought he could penetrate his defense like that. He added coldly that melting half his face would have passed unnoticed by the family head, explaining that the illusion was his last card and that if he had a more effective trump card he would have used it before rushing towards him. The commander wondered angrily about the extent of his underestimation of a Phaeton's finger, but he noticed something strange in the dagger. But suddenly a dagger pierced his neck from behind. The commander coughed blood, looking in shock at the young master. Ryan spoke, possessing his body, telling the commander he couldn't bear watching that useless arrogance. The commander realized with astonishment that he knew about soul transfer magic, as Ryan revealed to him that Sans's soul was currently trapped inside his body unconscious. He explained that he anticipated the commander's inability to kill him due to the family head's orders. He pointed out that the blood circle drawn on his body wasn't limited to amplifying pain only, but his true trump card was the magic that transfers one soul to another body to control it. The commander used the last magic attack he was capable of to eliminate him, and the attack caused a severe explosion. He felt happy, because he finally managed to eliminate the commander. He approached the corpse, and picked up the healing potion bottle in his possession, then poured the healing potion on himself first, and while the liquid flooded his body, system notifications appeared announcing the creation of the pain resistance skill and its immediate rank increase, helping him endure his wounds. Despite the pain squeezing his body, he realized it was inescapable, as he desperately needed to inflict a wound on Sans's body, which he currently inhabits, that clearly looks like Commander Aki caused it to seal his plan. He screamed ecstatic with his success, unable to believe he actually managed to hunt a 7th circle great mage and one of Phaeton's fingers. Amidst his joy, system notifications followed announcing the mission completion and his level rise. Surprised by a huge leap in his level from 2 to 15 at once, attributing that to defeating a strong opponent like Aki, he wondered if this rise was due to the mission only, but brushed the thought aside to focus on what must be done quickly. He dragged the corpse and placed it on the magic altar, certain that the success of the next step would determine how much time would be shortened to achieve his future plans. He based his plan on the fact that the skill circle is carved in the soul, not the body, meaning he is capable of using his own mana even while inside the body. He began pumping mana into the pre-prepared circles, realizing his level would drop by the amount of mana he would consume in this process. Indeed, his level dropped by 5 degrees, for a notification to appear of him achieving additional requirements and obtaining the Shadow job, the hidden job for the assassin class. This job requires agility stat reaching 20 and mana to 15 before level 5. He considered that a success, but looked at the remaining levels he had. and decided to try 2 more times, exploiting the available energy. He succeeded the second time and a notification appeared of him obtaining veering and achieving its requirements. Successes followed with him obtaining the Hand of Death job, the high job for the Necromancer class, a hidden job requiring 20 mana and the main class being of the Assassin type. His original plan stopped there, but the massive rise in his level after defeating Phaeton's Finger tempted him for more. He thought about the possibility of obtaining the hidden job, Ghost, the legendary job that appears when combining the Assassin and Necromancer classes and unlocking the Senses stat, which was the reason for making Aedeon the strongest previously. He realized the only obstacle lay in that obtaining the Ghost job depends on soul size, and wondered anxiously about the type of backlash he would face in case of failure at his current level. But he made up his mind and resolved, assuring himself that success meant his plans proceeding perfectly smoothly. He commenced the process without hesitation, so his level dropped another 5 degrees. But suddenly a dangerous warning appeared stating his soul was subjected to harm and needed rest. A resounding scream of pain erupted from him, shaking the place, as he felt his entire body tearing apart, and doubt began to seep into him regarding the impossibility of obtaining the 3rd job promotion. The pain continued to an unbearable degree, and he turned his gaze towards his main body, and recalled his memories, when he killed Alejandro while saving him, and when Sina sacrificed herself to defend the family. He insisted, refusing to surrender, and resolved to obtain the Ghost job even if he had to offer his soul as a price for that. Suddenly, immense energy emitted, and a notification appeared of unlocking a hidden job. He begged internally for the process to succeed, for the amazing surprise to come to him that he didn't just obtain the Ghost job, but ascended to Phantom, the high job of Ghost. He was stunned by the name Phantom, for it is a job he never saw or heard of even in the world of Aedeon. As he read the description card confirming it is the rank higher than Ghost, he realized he obtained everything he aspired to. He rose, announcing the time had come to execute the original plan. He recalled that the latent ability of Ghost enhances necromancy magic, and that his killing of the 7th Circle Mage Aki was a preparation for this specific moment. For if he succeeded in turning Aki's corpse into a subordinate, that would shorten many stages of his plan. He activated the Create Lich skill, which usually requires level 70, but is possible now with the presence of a great mage's corpse as raw material. The attempt to create a Lich failed, but the system automatically activated Create Special Undead as an alternative. A dark purple aura emitted from the corpse, and the system asked him if he wished to name the new creature. Outside, Fatin's men noticed a sudden explosion of energy, and wondered with panic about the young master's fate. He emerged from the smoke possessing Sansa's exhausted and injured body, casting blame immediately on Aki and claiming what happened was his doing. He screamed at the guards, accusing the commander of treason, pointing to his miserable state as undeniable proof. He claimed he managed to bind that bastard using an artifact, but warned it wouldn't hold long and that he would take Ryan's sermon and leave the place. He ordered them to buy time for him until he could return to the family. He promised them immediate reinforcements, tempting them with a generous reward if they managed to restrain the enemy's movement until then. He took off on his horse away from the place. Later, this scene was the last appearance of young Master Sans, as the subordinate stated in his report. In the Phaeton family tent, the subordinate was submitting his report with fear to Paris, a 7th Circle mage from the family. The report ended with a shocking fact, which is that no trace of Aki was found inside the place, provoking Paris's anger, who crushed the paper in his hand. Paris looked sharply at the report in his hands, muttering that if those contents were true, then the matter was serious. He asked his subordinate with a tone carrying a threat if they were the only ones who knew what happened that night. So the subordinate confirmed that with tension and fear. With a lightning movement, Paris's assistant beheaded the subordinate, and a death scream echoed in the place. Paris acknowledged that the young master's disappearance was a grave matter, but worse than that was the exposure of the involvement of Phaeton family members in kidnapping the Sermon family head. Paris heard the sound of a clash outside the tent, where Phaeton guards intercepted the path of Sermon forces, warning them against advancing another step. Despite the warning, the Sermon Knight commander advanced towards the tent. Alejandro stood boldly, asking his opponents what they would do if they decided to enter, then threatened to kill them all, calling them scum. Paris warned him that entering another family's territory without prior notice is a pretext for igniting war, but his reply came thunderously, saying they were the ones who started the war, demanding they bring the young master immediately. He pointed to the fire burning in the border area, certain the matter was no longer just suspicion, but certainty. For the outbreak of fire a week after his disappearance, the discovery of a strange underground facility, and the Phaeton family setting up its camp suddenly, were all signs of an attempt to hide something. Paris denied knowing his whereabouts and revealed that Sans Phaeton was missing too. Paris demanded he cooperate in the search. The other interrupted him with a scream, ordering him to shut up, preventing them from interfering in the crime scene until the investigation ended. In a place near the clash, Truno was cursing the appearance of Phaeton forces, wishing the situation wouldn't escalate to armed conflict. Sina intervened, scolding him for his excessive chatter and calling him a traitor, reminding him that were it not for the young master's letter he would have turned to ash. She ordered him to be silent except regarding the search for the young master. Truno revealed that Ryan told him he would leave a trace behind. She wondered about the location of this trace. Truno ruled out it being in a visible place, otherwise the Phaeton family would have discovered it first. He explained that the young master told him the family's special blue earth technique was the only one capable of determining his location. Since he succeeded in activating the technique even once, its resonant nature would leave an echo that could be traced even if faint. Sina focused her energy and soon picked up the signal and shouted that she found him. Eyes turned with astonishment and shock towards what they found. To see a corpse hanging on the tree, they recognized with shock the body full of wounds and blood, and read the phrase carved in blood on his chest: "I am the kidnapper. Punish me." Realizing it was Sans Faton's corpse, Sina was surprised by the presence of another letter at the bottom of the tree. While Truno asked eagerly if there was any trace of the young master, for her to answer finding a letter at the place. She read it, where he wrote that she would inevitably find it. He said he thought long about the options available to him, where he could have taken over Sans's body and destroyed the Phaeton family from within, but he realized the family head, the 8th Circle Great Mage, would discover the soul transfer easily. As for the second option, returning in his original body to the Sermon family, it might cause the ignition of a war the current Sermon family lacks the ability to wage, given that the incident might light the fuse of a destructive conflict between the two families. Therefore, he had only the third option left. He decided to disappear completely, but not before leaving a convincing explanation she could accept when she found him. Later, Truno stood wondering about the letter's content. Then she suggested returning to the family. While they were leaving, she released a magical messenger bird to fly high in the sky, announcing there was a lot of work awaiting them from now on. Later in Finton, the royal capital of the kingdom of Finestroy, someone called him to tell him the commander wanted him, requesting him to return to the guild. Back to Sina and Truno, where Truno calls her worried about what she just said, so she muttered she is sure now. He replies to the uncle in the affirmative, and that he will go to the commander now. While she finished her speech, that she is sure now the young master is the future dragon of the family. 3 months passed since those events, specifically in Finton, the royal capital of the kingdom of Finestroy. Rumors spread about the confrontation that occurred between the Phaeton and Sermon families, and how the kingdoms of Darren and Finestroy intervened quickly to mediate and calm the situation. People circulated talk about the cause of the dispute, pointing to the involvement of a traitor from the Phaeton family in kidnapping the last descendant of the Sermon family. The matter ended with the Sermon family accepting reparations from the Phaeton family. Despite not finding the culprit or the kidnapped son, people wondered about the Sermon family's thinking, especially with the disappearance of the family head nicknamed Golden Dragon for a while. A look of pity prevailed for the family that was once prestigious and is now in a state of total fall. In a corner of the capital, specifically at the Finton branch of the assassination guild, Martong, sat Sapphire, the branch manager and a second-grade assassin, in boredom. Someone told her the Sermon family is in a difficult situation, to the point they need money, more than they need the rest of their main lineage. Her boredom was interrupted by a man's question, if she knew news of the execution of Truno, the general manager of the Sermon family. The man answered that rumors say he collaborated with the traitor from Phaeton, and that Alejandro executed him by beheading immediately at the incident site. She was amazed that a swordmaster, one of the rare few on the continent of Drea, carried out the execution himself. At that moment, the door opened for a young man to enter. She welcomed him by his name, Ryan. He returned the greeting politely and offered greetings to Mr. Dons, and the latter asked him if he was there to meet the branch manager. In her office, she looked at him saying today is the scheduled date, and took out a sealed letter, asking him if he knew what it was. He told her it was a recommendation letter to be an official member of the Martong Guild. She smiled, confirming the correctness of his words, but reminded him there was a final test still awaiting him. She told him what awaits him will be his first real mission, but wondered if this test held any real meaning for someone with his capabilities. For in the Finton branch of the Martong Guild, considered the 4th largest prestigious assassination guild, he managed to reach the final test within 2 months only. She praised his unique talent, describing him as a great talent born in their branch and the youngest official member to join the guild in the last 100 years. He replied with artificial humility, considering he was still far from the level of a second-grade assassin like her, but his trick didn't fool her and she described his humility as fake. She noticed an improvement in his facial expressions compared to their first meeting, and while he was thinking about the speed of the past 2 months passing, she recalled memories of his first appearance, where he came quietly and unknown to the public, and presented a huge sum of money suddenly, requesting an assassination operation be carried out. He justified his deed saying he heard the guild accepts any request as long as money is available. She explained that when she confirmed the payment, she treated him as a client, not just for the money, but because she felt a strong intuition she wouldn't meet a strange client like him again. She remembered strangely how a child wearing shabby clothes brought a huge sum and made an unusual request, which was to have himself assassinated personally, which aroused her interest intensely. He decided to check the letter himself and asked her to summon him when the test time came. After he left, a mysterious person named Cal appeared from the shadows, asking disapprovingly if she accepted that boy into the guild based on a mere feeling. She denied that, reminding him of what happened later, as the boy indeed joined Martong and finished the full assassination training in just 1 month. She confirmed to Cal that this training, which usually takes between 5 to 10 years as a minimum, he finished in record time, proving he is an exceptional talent. She asked her assistant if he finished the investigation into his background correctly. Cal began listing the information he gathered. Ryan, with no surname, distinguished by blue hair and green eyes, found in the streets and raised by an unknown teacher who disappeared one day. He added that he joined the guild searching for information about his teacher, and the most prominent part of his story is his request to assassinate himself as an innovative way to prove his worthiness to join Martong. Thanks to that, his skills were verified and he passed training quickly. Cal finished his report. She noted this was the information they heard from him, doubting its truth. He interrupted her, confirming everything he said was true. As he went himself to the place he claimed he lived in with his teacher, and found traces confirming someone was living there until recently. She corrected herself, saying even if those details were true, the most important thing occupying her mind is the possibility he is Ryan Sermon himself, the missing young master of the Sermon family. She linked events together, pointing to the appearance of a mysterious boy of the same age and at almost the same time, wondering suspiciously if it was just a coincidence, as this obsession was bothering her. Cal replied that the probability of them being the same person is extremely low, so she asked him why he thought that. He explained his skeptical point of view, pointing to a fact known to everyone that Ryan Sermon not only lacks mana, but is also unable to master swordsmanship and lacks stamina and all other qualifications, a conclusion based on careful observation to gather information about him since birth. He continued describing him as the title of the family's fall, ruling out completely the idea that he is the same person possessing unique talent like the boy who joined the guild. He added giving her the choice to continue tracking if she wanted, but she stopped him quickly, announcing that was enough. She scolded her assistant, considering it useless to drain a talent like him on a pointless mission like this, and instead directed his attention towards investigating the teacher the boy mentioned, expressing her belief that if there was a person who actually raised him, he must be an exceptional person. Meanwhile, he was watching the situation from afar, noticing with sly features and a green glow surrounding him that the woman's intuition was unnecessarily sharp. He thought to himself that necromancer skills become extremely comfortable wherever spirits are present. Where he explained to himself he could gather information and hear everything through the eyes and ears of those spirits, suddenly Sapphire felt a shiver running through her body and wondered if the weather was a bit cold today. While he busied himself examining his status window showing his active class, Hand of Death, at level 13, and his inactive classes, Ghost and Phantom, in addition to developed physical and mental stats and his multiple skills, he noticed with relief that the levels he lost during class change had returned to him. He acknowledged that investing mana in the body control skill was a sound decision, for the issue goes beyond merely changing external appearance. He became capable of avoiding mana detection, and reached a level where he could deceive appearance detection skills possessed by second-grade assassins. His memory returned to that day, and remembered what happened in it, when the system asked him if he wanted to give a name to the creature, so he named it Kornak. He remembered his astonishment when examining Kornak for the first time, as he found it possessed specific stats for strength, agility, and mana, and skills like Firebolt and Soul Shield, making it look like a player, which made him realize he was facing an undead capable of growth and evolution. He wondered then if this was the special power of the Phantom class. Since this matter wasn't mentioned in the skill description, he decided to take a quick look at its magic circle, and there was the surprise, where he found a quest named The Avenger, without clear details about the description or reward. He was stunned by the existence of a quest system in the continent of Drea, especially a quest requiring the player to find hidden conditions and complete them. Wondering with astonishment how a hidden quest was included inside the magic circle, he clearly remembered seeing the quest completion notification after defeating the mage Aki, and concluded that the combination of the Hand of Death class and Phantom and the presence of a quest inside the skill circle is what led to Kornak's birth. Although Kornak is currently nothing but a monster devouring mana and a burden sharing precious experience points, he was confident a day would come when this creature would be a real help to him. For him, growth means looking to the future, not focusing on the present only. He returned to his reality in the test arena when a supervisor asked him what he was thinking about with such intense focus. He answered smartly that he was thinking of passing the test to become an official member of the guild and aspiring to become the Martong branch manager someday. So the supervisor laughed, saying this dream might actually come true considering his growth speed. But he corrected himself seriously, noting there were 3 candidates today, and only one of them would pass the test. The supervisor explained this was the final test to obtain official Martong membership and the rank of 5th grade assassin. He called the candidates' names, Bala and Lin, and finally, Ryan, then announced the decisive condition clearly, which is that the only person who succeeds in assassinating the target is the one who will become an official member of the guild. With the announcement of the test start, everyone prepared to launch. The supervisor began by asking for target information first. For Lin to tell him his name is Alok, 47 years old, a merchant running a decent shop. She added that the target is always protected by 3 mercenaries, 2 of them bronze rank warriors, and the third, a silver rank mage. Bala intervened, noting a rumor stating he took a young mistress recently and visits her bedroom every night. He confirmed that during those visits, even mercenaries don't approach the place. The instructor praised the trainee, explaining he told her the target's name only, but she investigated well, and that her assessment of the guard situation and finding a way to avoid them was good behavior. But he surprised him with a question about the guarantee of the target going to the mistress's room today, specifically since the test is held today. So Bala stammered. The instructor increased his pressure, asking if the trainees could deal with those guards in case the target didn't go to the mistress, so she hesitated to answer. The instructor explained this is the reason making the Martong Guild gather information precisely, then moved to speak with the last trainee. The instructor addressed him, asking him to share the information he gathered. He replied coldly, asking if he was obliged to do that. The instructor and trainees were surprised by this response. He justified his stance, saying they wouldn't all become official guild members if they cooperated to complete the mission. Rather, it is a test where only one person can succeed, so he saw no reason to share information. Bala objected sharply, asking about their status as people who shared their information with him, and Lin confirmed, stammering they were comrades in the end. He replied to her that he didn't remember learning anything about comradeship during their training. The instructor supported the correctness of his words. He explained to the trainees that this was just a test and it was fine to use individual abilities, but the most important thing was passing the test by using what they learned in training. The instructor added to himself a harsh truth that discarding others or using them as needed is the assassin's way, considering within himself that his answer touched the essence of what it means to be an assassin. The instructor asked Bala and Lin if they had anything else to say, so they answered in the negative. The instructor announced that from this moment, they are free to assassinate the target. He rushed off immediately. While the instructor considered him a promising person, he remembered a previous scene when someone wondered disapprovingly about the request to assassinate that child. Sapphire clarified the request details that 4 individuals of the 4th rank and 3 of the 3rd rank would be mobilized for this mission, with a time limit of 3 days within Benton borders and a reward of 100 gold pieces upon success. The basic condition was making him join the Martong branch in Benton as a special grade trainee. The instructor mocked the time limit, considering 3 days an exaggerated duration, and vowed to the others to find him within 10 minutes only, no matter how he tried to hide. But the instructor admitted his abject failure later, acknowledging that the child's traps and tricks were no joke. Committed to the promise, Sapphire told him she would start his training from that day. Back to the present, the instructor thought that becoming an official assassin in Martong isn't easy, especially since the target in this test was appointed personally by the branch manager to be the hardest in history. While he was running, he felt he might be at the starting point of history. Bala stormed the place, smashing the window, and disabled the alarm magic and mechanical devices in a single moment. Bala thought to himself that he had succeeded in sneaking in, avoiding the mercenaries, but he was shocked by their unexpectedly large numbers. Suddenly, shouts rang out announcing an intruder, as the guards pointed in the direction he had taken, warning not to let him escape. Meanwhile, Ina watched what was happening, describing him as a fool, but she acknowledged that things had turned in her favor thanks to him. She told herself that even if she hadn't been discovered, she would have made sure to be discovered to create a distraction. She deduced that the target, Alok, who had survived numerous assassination attempts until now, always chose a specific hideout, and this hideout was his main wife's bedroom. Inside the room, the wife screamed at him, expressing her fed-up state, considering his bringing of assassins after bringing a concubine to be unbearable. He tried to calm her down, calling her honey and denying the charge, insisting that the presence of the assassins was not his fault and that the room was completely safe. Ina noticed from the outside that the defenses were better than before and that the number of mercenaries had increased. But she saw that the mercenaries attached to the target had rushed towards him, leaving only 5 ordinary soldiers that she could sense. So she decided that a frontal attack was worth a try. He screamed in panic, asking his wife what she was doing and demanding she put down what was in her hand immediately due to its danger. But she confronted him, saying she had tried to be patient while remembering the words of love he used to whisper to her. She admitted her inability to endure any longer, accusing him of taking money from her family again under the pretext of a lack of funding for his business. She revealed to him that she knew he used the money he received from her family to buy a gift for his mistress. Then she attacked him amidst his terrified screams. The blood-stained knife fell to the floor. The wife stood stunned, muttering about what she had done before letting out a resounding scream. One of the guards burst into the place, asking anxiously what had happened. Ina realized that the mission target had been killed by his wife, so she wondered in confusion if this counted as a success or a failure. She thought about why Ryan hadn't appeared yet. She concluded that the request had failed. She reasoned that the target was killed by his main wife's hand, not by theirs. Later, Ina looked at him suspiciously, asking why he was here before her. She even doubted whether he had gone to the mansion with them in the first place. Bala arrived, panting heavily, announcing his safe return. He explained that the mercenaries had suddenly started fighting among themselves, which gave him a chance to escape with difficulty. The instructor announced the end of the test, then clapped his hands, explaining that the assassination was not a failure. He pointed to Ryan, confirming that the request was completed because he was the one who accomplished it. The trainees were shocked and shouted in protest, asking how the request could be considered successful in this case. It was clearly evident that the target Alok had been killed by his main wife, who was stained with blood, so the supervisor confirmed to the astonished attendees that what happened was entirely his doing. The supervisor explained that he manipulated the course of events and pushed the wife to kill him with her own hands, which astonished the other trainees. The supervisor explained that he planned the matter so that the wife would be the instrument of execution, and when asked for an explanation, everyone expected him to answer arrogantly, but he surprised them by saying he would tell them the truth. He revealed that the solution lay in exploiting what was between the couple. The colleagues wondered if he had exploited the target's family situation or obtained secret information from the branch manager, but he denied that, explaining that he learned of the target at the same time as them, but he recognized his name as a famous liquor distribution merchant, confirming the accuracy of the information provided to them about his guards and his mistress's room. The surprise was that he had actually already finished researching those details himself beforehand, and while the others were planning how to kill, he was executing a plan he had prepared in advance. Everyone was shocked by this statement, wondering how he completed the investigation before the exam when he didn't know the target, so he clarified that he hadn't investigated just Alok. He revealed that he had collected information on every notorious person in the city who could potentially be an assassination target, having gotten close to merchants knowledgeable about rumors and gathered everything beforehand, exploiting the fact that he finished the scheduled 2-month training in just 1 month. He used the remaining time to prepare assassination plans for every imaginable target to ensure his immediate response regardless of the target's identity. The trainees realized then that he hadn't just satisfied himself with the exam, but had studied the entire book beforehand. He added that during his research, he found a person bearing a deep grudge against Alok, which was his wife, Kelly. He communicated with the wife, who was psychologically cornered because of her husband, and calmly suggested a solution to her, hiring an assassination guild. The husband was ignoring his wife and constantly bringing in mistresses, using money received from her family, which made her hate him to the point of wanting to kill him, but she didn't actually want his death initially. He told her that if she hired extra mercenaries and strengthened security, he would stay safe and would only feel fear. He predicted that when he fled, he would retreat to the safest room in the house, which was his wife's room. He instructed her to portray that commotion as a conspiracy plotted by the mistress with a secret lover of hers, so that the husband would come to his senses and return to her. Because she was drowning in alcohol and despair, she believed the story very easily. Had things stopped there, they would have gone as the wife wished, but he told her an additional and crucial piece of information right before the assassination began. He revealed to her that the money Alok was using to meet his mistress and buy gifts for her was taken entirely from her family under the pretext of funding the business. The instructor realized that from the beginning, and even the exam itself, they were at the beck and call of this boy. While it became clear that he made the other trainee, Bala, look like the mistress's lover in the wife's eyes, there remained one thing the supervisor couldn't fully accept, which was that no matter how angry an ordinary woman is, it is difficult for her to stab her husband to death in that manner. Ryan explained that he intervened a little to help the wife, as he mixed a chemical dose into the liquor that was delivered to the house. To avoid unnecessary casualties, he also mixed the dose into the water the mercenaries drank, noting that the timing was luckily perfect, and when asked about the type of that chemical dose, he explained that it was a substance that clouds judgment for a while and makes people easily angered, which made those present realize that the mercenaries fighting among themselves was also due to the effect of that dose. He added that he hadn't learned camaraderie, but he simply didn't want his fellow trainees or guild members to die, which surprised Lin, whose face flushed red from his words. The supervisor summarized what happened. Everything unfolded exactly as he thought, for with the drug enhancing the effect of the leaked information, the enraged Kelly killed her husband. The supervisor emphasized that assassination does not require one to hold the knife themselves, congratulating him on passing the test. Ryan added that they should be able to collect the commission fee plus an additional amount from her, justifying that even though she had turned into a killer, the truth remained that hired killers had stormed the place, and they were the only ones who knew that she was the one who killed her husband, not the killers. From her perspective, she would want to cover up his death as if it were the work of the killers, even if she had to pay more. Meanwhile, the supervisor realized in his heart that his level was no small matter, and that his handling of the matter from an assassin's point of view was amazing. The other trainees realized that competing with him was futile, and they should target second place instead. The supervisor ordered the other trainees to return to the guild, but he stopped him, asking to speak with him. As they jumped over the rooftops, the supervisor asked him if he truly realized what he had done, pointing out that that woman must now live the rest of her life with the guilt of killing her husband, and asked him if he could imagine the feeling of an ordinary woman after becoming his killer. He assured him seriously that their guild raises killers, not monsters. He replied that he viewed her as an ordinary woman too, until he learned the reason Alok continued to bring mistresses. He revealed to the supervisor that every mistress the husband brought was disposed of by Kelly, and that behind the liquor trade, he ran drugs, usurious loans, and gambling, which destroyed the lives of countless humans because of him. He explained that she used to dispose of these women using her family's influence to keep her hands clean, and that the husband had grown tired of her, yet continued to bring more mistresses despite knowing they would be killed immediately. He added that her family faked the victims' deaths as disappearances, so the victims' families were still looking for them, unable to oppose the major powers. He said these details were just information uncovered in the investigation, and even if it was a test, it was still an assassination request, and whether the wife wanted her husband's death or not, the guild only gets the full amount if Alok dies. He smiled coldly, saying that an assassin doesn't consider whether the target deserves death or what the client's reasons are, wondering if the intervention of conscience in assassination prevents it from being murder, and should they examine motives or methods when they kill for money. He pointed out that she never said she didn't want to kill her husband herself. She intended to use the assassination request, and they simply completed it, emphasizing that there is undoubtedly an assassin involved in Alok's death, even if she now has to suffer forever knowing she delivered the blow herself. The supervisor asked him in shock if he meant that there is no place for conscience for them as killers. He stood under the sunlight, advising Mr. Dons that if he wanted to keep his humanity, he must become stronger and grow strong enough to change the system from its roots. He concluded his speech by saying it doesn't matter how one looks for conscience while executing requests now. He confirmed to Dons that as long as he works under the umbrella of the Assassination Guild, nothing will change. Later, a smile was drawn on his face as he accepted congratulations from Sapphire on passing the test successfully, welcoming him as a full official member of Martong and a grade 5 assassin. At that moment, system notifications appeared before his eyes announcing the mission completion and his level up, in addition to achieving an extra mission. Notifications also appeared stating he gained the respect of Lin and Bala, and the expectations of Instructor Dons, granting additional experience points. She explained to him that as a grade 5 assassin, he could now accept official Martong requests, and that he could apply for a promotion if he met the conditions, adding with slight sarcasm that she didn't think he planned to promote immediately. But he interrupted her and listed the promotion conditions, either completing one successful request worth 30 gold coins or more, or successfully completing 10 grade 5 requests, or obtaining a recommendation from a branch manager or a grade 3 assassin. He asked sarcastically if these were the correct conditions for promotion. She confirmed the conditions were correct, so he asked her directly about the value of the financial payment for the target assassination request. Silence and astonishment prevailed among those present, and one of the assassins wondered what this boy was doing. He repeated his question about the amount, so she answered that the advance payment was 10 gold coins, and the completion payment was another 10 gold coins. She added, giving him a meaningful look, that there were another 10 gold coins he obtained from Kelly as a condition for covering up her killing of her husband. Instructor Dons suddenly realized what Ryan was aiming at and was shocked. He announced confidently that he was the one who brought the request, completed it, and obtained the additional payment. He asked if the first condition for promotion, which is completing one request with a value exceeding 30 gold coins, had been completed thereby. Anger ignited in Sapphire's eyes, while he stood boldly declaring his status as a grade 5 assassin and demanding his promotion to a grade 4 assassin. Whispers and disapproval spread among the rest of the assassins in the hall. Sapphire considered his behavior extremely arrogant. She acknowledged the amazing achievements he had shown, but she asked him sharply if he was looking down on them with exaggerated condescension. She proceeded to remind him that the organization has its rules and principles, and that assassins are not truly considered legitimate until grade 4 and onwards. She added that everyone builds their experience and skills, undergoes verification among their peers, and takes pride in reaching the rank of grade 4, accusing him of despising all those efforts. He didn't care for her lecture and asked her coldly if the promotion conditions were met or not, making her admit that they were met even if not perfect, warning him that behaving this way would bring him everyone's resentment. She told him she would pretend she didn't hear his words, and she tried to diffuse the tension by suggesting that his fatigue from the first mission was the cause, but he refused to back down, confirming that he would not withdraw his promotion request. She flew into a rage and shouted at him, saying that if he wanted to live here decently, he had to learn some manners. At that critical moment, Instructor Dons intervened, calling the branch manager and asking for permission to speak as the test supervisor. She gave him permission, so he surprised everyone by announcing that he believed Ryan was fully qualified to take the grade 4 promotion test immediately. Dons explained that it wasn't because he looked down on them, but because he showed the most important and vital thing in this test. She asked about the most important thing, and the instructor clarified that it wasn't about making plans or tactics, but about pure physical ability, pointing out that Ryan possesses assassination skills that rely on high physical capabilities. The other trainees admitted that he succeeded in his last mission thanks to his clever tactics. But the instructor revealed that the grade 4 promotion test is something impossible to pass without enormous physical ability, considering it an opportunity to measure his true skill level or to teach him a harsh lesson. The rest of the attendees supported the instructor's words, noting that he had escaped them in the chase game earlier, mostly using traps. Based on that, she agreed to conduct the promotion test, warning him that this test requires even fully prepared assassins to risk their lives. She directed her question to him with a challenging smile, asking if he was ready, so he shook her hand, confirming his complete readiness. Later, inside a tavern, the instructor described his behavior as extreme recklessness, and Bala guessed that he acted this way because he wanted something, and Lin asked him if he had a plan. She explained to him that the grade 4 test wouldn't be held for at least a month or two while drinks arrived at their table. The instructor offered to train him until that time since they needed to determine a suitable target for the test, but Ryan politely refused, reasoning that he wished to get some rest. The instructor was surprised by the idea of rest, as he told him he planned to stay away from the guild for a while, wondering if he was allowed to leave the branch area now that he had become a full member. The instructor confirmed to him that it was allowed, so he told him of his intention to return before the test and that he would pass by the Martong branch to check for test news. Dons asked him if leaving the guild was his current plan. A mysterious smile appeared on his face, causing the instructor to sigh and tell him to do as he pleased, inviting them to enjoy their drink, and warning the barmaid against serving alcohol to the boy. Dons advised Ryan that this free time wouldn't be easily available later, for once he reached grade 4, he would be compelled to accept requests constantly, especially since targets are often branch leaders, meaning a lack of rest. He thought to himself that he had to go before that happened. He arrived at a rugged mountainous area known as the Dark Zone, or the Land of Death. There, he glimpsed a procession for a carriage guarded by a group of knights. One of the knights noticed a person sitting on the side of the road, and it was him disguised in a cloak, so the knight asked him about his identity. He claimed his leg was injured and asked them to take him to the next village, claiming he would die if the sun set while he was in this state, and that he was waiting for anyone to pass by to help him. The pink-haired knight thought that this child was extremely bold. He scolded him loudly for stopping a noble's carriage, threatening him that if they were on an urgent official mission, they would have killed him on the spot. But he replied smartly, pointing out that the rhythm of the horse's hooves was regular, meaning they weren't in a hurry, and if they were on an official mission, they would have taken the main road, not this side road. The knight was stunned by the boy's deduction. He continued his pleading, asking them to consider it saving a poor child and helping him just this once. The noble person sitting in the carriage had a change of heart and ordered Knight Kennel to put the child in the carriage. Kennel objected strongly, so the noble suggested an alternative solution, which was putting him on the back of one of the horses. The scene looked surprising as Ryan settled on the back of the horse in front of the commander, prompting one of the subordinates to comment, laughing that this position suited the commander surprisingly well, which provoked his grumbling. The commander asked the boy for his name, so he answered, introducing himself and saying he came from Benton. He pointed out smartly that he was saved thanks to the kind young lady in the carriage, but the commander replied rudely, saying he should be grateful because meeting her was just a stroke of luck. In his heart, he denied that it was mere luck, but rather a tight plan to escort Lady Senton Rose, who bears the rose crest and is a descendant of the family. He had learned during his reconnaissance of the road beforehand while looking for any dangers, that the Rose family procession would take the same route he was taking. The Rose family lived quietly in the outer regions of the kingdom of Finestroy, but the sudden death of the family head forced the lady into exile. He noticed that the procession escorts were not real knights, but special soldiers of the family who were granted the title of knight upon joining the exile, given that the family was of minor nobility in the border region. While the soldiers spoke sorrowfully about the hardships their young mistress was going through, he was thinking that the fall of the Rose family was attributed to the Sermon family. This is what the investigations concluded, which stopped at the death of the family head and Senton Rose's exile. The question occupying his mind remained how the Sermon family was involved in all this. While the commander asked disapprovingly how the fault could be Sermon's, another replied that he heard something. The soldier revealed a rumor saying the cunning Sermon family was the one who assassinated the Rose family head to hide evidence of their secret dealings, which sparked his internal shock. He sat at night thinking about what he heard, and deduced a lot of information from communicating with them, concluding that the fall of the Rose family stemmed from the recent conflict between the Sermon and Phaeton families. The roots of the relationship go back to when the eldest son of the Rose family, which belongs to the kingdom of Finestroy, where the Phaeton family is, became a knight for the Sermon family in the kingdom of Dyron. This son was killed while performing his duty guarding the borders in the Dark Zone, so the Sermon family decided to honor him by providing massive support to the Rose family. Another noble family that was competing with Rose and held a grudge due to its sudden rise with Sermon's support exploited the ongoing conflict between Sermon and Phaeton as an opportunity to move. After the assassination of the Rose family head, rumors spread that the family was secretly working for Sermon and that the latter killed the family head to bury the evidence. Although the Rose family claimed the assassination was by order of Phaeton, the increasing influence of Phaeton and the weakness of Sermon made their words useless. Thus, after losing its leader and the collapse of its power, the Rose family set off on the road to exile towards Dyron. Ryan realized that the only ones who knew the full truth were those who stayed with Senton Rose and didn't abandon her, including Kennel, who was appointed knight recently, and a few close subordinates. He was certain that this journey of exile would never be easy. Commander Kennel told his knights that the problem didn't lie with the Sermon family, but with Phaeton and the Ayani family, recalling the looks of the second son of the Ayani family towards the young lady. In reality, this exile wouldn't have been possible without the Sermon family obtaining permission from the kingdom of Dyron. In fact, the Sermon family had exhausted its remaining resources to provide the necessary support for them. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers proposed a toast to the Sermon family, and the soldier offered Ryan an extra bowl of soup, which he accepted gratefully. He commented that the story was very interesting, especially with these people's close connection to the Sermon family, in response to someone's remark that the matter might be boring for him. While the soldier asked worriedly if it was right to bring a child like him with them and let him hear all those sensitive stories, the soldier reminded him angrily how he blocked their way to ask for help and ended up rolling in the dirt, which made him laugh. The soldier noticed that the commander seemed more relieved after unburdening his chest, adding that the commander is a kind person despite his apparent harshness. The conversation moved to Miss Senton Rose, where another soldier acknowledged that she was suffering the most in this ordeal. In his heart, Ryan agreed with their opinion, realizing that the real problem lay in her situation. He deduced that Kennel and the other knights, due to their lack of experience, hadn't yet realized the true gravity of this chain of events, nor the nature of the grave dangers awaiting them on the road. He thought about the Ayani family allied with Phaeton, certain that they wouldn't be satisfied with merely eliminating the Rose family head. He conjured up in his mind the image of the second son of the Ayani family, a young man not yet 20, yet 3 assassination requests had been filed against him at the guild, describing him as a complete scumbag. He remembered refusing those requests previously due to their lack of financial viability, despite knowing this person was evil and targeted the weak and poor exclusively, and surrounded himself with heavy protection, making his assassination difficult. He realized that if a man like this was targeting Senton Rose, he had no time to camp and relax. Meanwhile, he sensed suspicious movement, realizing someone was pursuing them and that a tail had attached itself to them. He decided it was best not to engage them, but to set traps to slow their pursuit, reasoning that their number and path indicated the message had already been conveyed. When the soldier asked him why he was covered in dirt, he lied, claiming he rolled while relieving himself. The soldier ordered him to stay and rest quietly. He felt satisfied because he had laid enough traps to disable the pursuers, and that he had gathered the necessary information, deciding that his connection to them would end upon reaching the next town. He considered that the price for the soup he ate. The next morning, he thanked them for giving him a ride this far, and when asked why a child like him was near the dark zone, he claimed he was a traveling merchant planning to buy monster materials from Dassam village to sell in Benton. The soldier pointed out that their paths parted here, but the commander intervened suddenly and presented him with a bottle of medicine. He explained to him that the young lady ordered him to give him this medicine because his leg hadn't fully healed yet. Ryan was surprised and asked if the lady was leaving. The commander conveyed the lady's thanks to him, explaining that thanks to him they were able to find a rare moment of peace amidst their ordeal. The commander told him they would stay in the continent from now on, and offered help if he ever needed it, but then he retracted his offer, asking him not to look for them even if he needed help. The soldier commented to him that the commander might seem rude but was kind-hearted, and another soldier added that the commander would have found a way to help the child even without orders. The soldier smiled, pointing out that the commander's only problem was his excessive frowning, while the commander shouted at him, scolding him for not moving quickly. While walking alone on the mountain road, he heard the sound of horse hooves approaching rapidly from behind him. He took a sip of the medicine while analyzing the situation. Realizing that a group was chasing them, he accurately determined the composition of the pursuit team consisting of 6 individuals, including 2 ordinary mercenaries, 2 beginner swordsmen, and 1 mage whom he considered a clear nuisance. As for the last person, he was hiding his face with a hood, but he was certain he was a noble. He recognized the noble's identity as Garuta Ayani, the second son of the Ayani family, who was riding his steed at breakneck speed as he passed by him. He realized the skill level of the pursuit team was higher than he expected, and that his plan to disable them using traps had failed, causing him to grumble that this effort was excessive for the price of just a bowl of soup. He remembered the potion he just drank, shocked to realize it was a high-quality potion worth more than 20 silver pieces. He marveled at the generosity of the lady who gave such precious medicine to a child who helped her for only one night, wondering about the mettle of this person who thinks of others while living a fugitive's life. He concluded that the Rose family had no chance of survival, and the inevitable fate was Senton's abduction and the elimination of the rest. He considered the value of the potion equivalent to an advance payment for work, deciding that this balanced the accounts. So he decided to intervene and called upon his subordinate, Kornak, assigning him his first mission to disable the horses and avoid causing more casualties. On the other side, the procession continued its march, and the pursuers were closing in on them. Kennel announced increasing his speed, while asking his mistress to endure because they needed to hurry a little despite the shaking of the carriage. The soldiers were surprised by this sudden change, as the commander informed them in panic that they were being watched and people possessing mana were tracking them. Kennel screamed at his men to speed towards the border, which had become close, and issued his orders to Chaco and Gayan that in case the enemy caught up with them, they must take the lady and run directly towards the border. He assured them that once she crossed it, the Ayani family wouldn't dare touch her for fear of provoking the continent's border guards. Kennel made his fateful decision to stay behind to buy time for them. Amidst the shock of his men who chanted his name as he promised to meet them at the border, he realized in his heart that the Ayani family knights were not opponents he could match, especially since he obtained the title of knight by chance, but he affirmed to himself with pride that he was a knight of the Rose family. Suddenly, the pursuers stopped in astonishment when he blocked their path, screaming at them, ordering them to stop and retreat immediately, asking who dared to chase the Rose family carriage. He threatened the group pursuing them that he would cut them to pieces without mercy if they refused to retreat, but the leader mocked what he said, and that he would cut him. Wondering sarcastically if obtaining the title of knight made him something of value, Kennel recognized his opponent's identity with shock and uttered his name in horror, Garuta Ayani. Garuta's men panicked at the exposure of their master's identity, but he reassured them with a savage smile, pointing out that they would kill everyone anyway except Senton Rose. He issued his orders to his men to set off immediately and bring the woman before she reached the border, so they responded to him with one voice. Kennel tried to block their way, asking where they thought they were going, but a massive bang of a violent collision cut off his words and sparked chaos in the place. He realized the presence of a mage in the opponent's ranks, estimating his power to be of the second circle or higher. But Garuta ordered his follower to calm down and deal with Kennel as a fellow knight, threatening him that he would die here regardless of what happened. At that moment, Kennel was shocked when he recognized the face of the opponent facing him, asking in amazement why Commander Shiso, the former commander of the Rose Knights, was in this place. He answered coldly that the reason was money, of course. Shiso justified his betrayal, stating that the Rose family was finished and he couldn't starve to death, adding with a cunning smile that he hadn't had some fun in a while, so he asked him to make it entertaining. And the two swords clashed with power and violence. Kennel screamed in his former commander's face, asking him angrily if he had abandoned the honor of knights. So Shiso replied that the world had changed, and there was no chivalry left in the kingdom of Benstroy. Kennel received powerful blows that knocked his sword to the ground, and Shiso stood over him advising him to surrender, pointing to rumors speaking of an imminent war, meaning Kennel with his talent could still serve a new master. He rejected those words and screamed at him not to speak nonsense while he was bleeding. Garuta Ayani ordered Shiso to end the matter quickly and move on, Guessing that his men might have already captured Senten by now, Shiso apologized coldly and raised his sword to settle the battle with a single blow. But a sudden intervention stopped his blade, causing him to scream in shock, asking about the identity of this intruder. Kornak appeared surrounded by a terrifying green aura. Shiso muttered angrily at the audacity of this creature, who surprised him with a fast and snatching magical attack. He retreated under the weight of the attack, and the mage intervened, admitting that his magic shield barely withstood that force, acknowledging that his new opponent possessed incredible skill. While Shiso staggered and coughed up blood from the intensity of the blow, Ryan watched what was happening from afar, muttering with annoyance that this great effort was the heavy price for the bowl of soup he ate. The scene shifted to the carriage carrying Senten Rose, finding the bodies of knights scattered everywhere around it. The attackers mocked the guards' attempt to hold out and act like knights despite their extreme exhaustion, and considered killing them a troublesome matter, suggesting they disappear quietly instead. The guards realized with despair that their strength didn't even amount to the level of a sword beginner compared to their opponents. And suddenly the carriage door opened with an audible sound and an order to stop. Miss Senten called her two guards by their names and thanked everyone for holding out until this moment, while the guards shouted in fear, refusing their mistress's exit. She drew her dagger, announcing she would go with the attackers on the condition that they leave the rest of the guards. She threatened that she would die too if they didn't agree, deducing that the employer wouldn't want her death. In that manner, the enemy identified the two guards and confirmed that that woman was the only remaining lineage of the Rose family. While she walked towards them amidst her guards' anxiety, she repeated her offer to surrender in exchange for the safety of the rest. Her guards tried to prevent her from doing so. She assured them she would kill herself otherwise, because their hirer wouldn't be satisfied with that result. One of the enemies replied to her coldly that she was mistaken in her assumption, explaining that as long as she didn't reach Dairen, she was not considered a noble nor anything worth mentioning. She was shocked by his words, as he assured her this meant there was no reason to listen to her. He threatened to show her the consequence of resisting a knight using mana. The guards screamed in panic and tried to move quickly towards her to save her. Suddenly someone rushed in with lightning speed, delivering a violent kick to the enemy's face. Senten was stunned by what she saw, while the enemy fell to the ground from the force of the kick. The other enemy wondered about the identity of this intruder. Ryan appeared in his cloak, complaining that he intended to cover the cost of the potion with this intervention, but he mocked the weak level of the opponents, noting that he might have some change left from the account. He directed his words to the miss, suggesting she consider the potion and soup as a down payment and hire an assassin from Martong to do the job. She repeated the words in astonishment. He speaks of an assassin from Martong? The enemy wondered strangely why Martong was here and why they were helping the Rose family. She began analyzing the situation, thinking that if he was from Martong, he might be from the direct line of Asan. She quickly offered a sum of 30 gold coins. He smiled, saying it was good she grasped the situation quickly, but he corrected, saying, however, he explained to her that the amount was very small, as 30 gold pieces were only enough to deal with the knight standing in front of her. He explained that the amount was extremely meager to deal with the second son of the Ayani family, the former commander of the Rose family knights, plus a mage of the third circle. The enemy looked at him with shock and suppressed anger. He warned her of the necessity to speak quickly, confirming that if the commission wasn't established and agreed upon, there was no need for his presence in this place. She realized the gravity of the situation, muttering that his departure now meant the failure of the exile plan and the loss of everything. So she decided the time wasn't right to think about consequences, and protecting the Rose family was the top priority. She turned her gaze towards him and said in a voice filled with despair, everything, then completed her plea with great eagerness, offering him everything he wanted in exchange for helping them. He smiled a cunning smile and accepted the offer immediately, while a terrifying green aura began to surround him. The enemy mocked him for using the title assassin boldly while revealing his face, pointing out that real assassins hide their identities. But he launched towards him like an arrow, mocking his words and considering it the talk of cowards with small ambitions. And with a lightning movement invisible to the naked eye, he dealt a powerful blow to the enemy mage, declaring confidently that a professional assassin makes no mistakes and therefore possesses the audacity to reveal his identity. While Senten watched the scene in amazement, he was internally celebrating the success of his first official raid in the Martong Guild, realizing the price he secured was the entire Rose family, and deciding to build a reputation befitting this massive achievement. The enemy refused to surrender and screamed in his face not to speak nonsense, asserting they were not sword beginners to be defeated easily. The other knight appeared behind him suddenly, screaming at him to die, and executing a quick attack amidst his astonishment, which he managed to dodge easily. The other knight screamed at his fallen brother to urge him to get up, warning him that their opponent was an assassin from Martong and shouldn't be underestimated. He threatened him that he made a fatal mistake by accepting the Rose family's request, boasting of the dual sword style and harmonious position swapping with his brother. The brothers attacked together with the intention of making him regret his choice, but he met their attack with disparaging coldness. At that moment, he activated the skills body control and physical acceleration, moving with insane speed that made the enemies think they were facing illusions or magical clones, despite their inability to sense any mana flow. The brothers tried to maintain their cohesion, and one shouted at the other to adjust the counterattack timing, but he told them in a cold voice that it was already too late. Their confusion continued amidst hidden attacks. wondering in confusion about the nature of this ability that resembles magic but doesn't rely on mana. Chaos spread in their ranks, and their screams rose while trying desperately to coordinate their defenses. Then he revealed the shocking truth to them, telling them he had already applied the skills of physical weakness, obfuscation, and hearing impairment on them. The enemy realized with horror that they were facing curse skills, and one of them screamed, accusing him of being a possessor of necromancer abilities. He didn't give them time and finished them off with a crushing final blow, ordering them to taste the pain felt by those who died and were left behind from the Rose family. With sunset and the calm of the battle, Senten and her surviving guards stood next to the carriage. Suddenly they heard a familiar voice calling, surprised by the return of Commander Kennel alive, reassuring them eagerly about everyone's safety. Commander Kennel returned safely to his comrades. Senten expressed her immense relief at seeing him okay. He rushed to check on Gayan and Chaco, who were overcome with astonishment, unable to believe their commander managed alone to repel the pursuers and survive that desperate situation. He reminded them of his previous words about meeting at the border, so his comrades began explaining what happened with slight stuttering. He revealed to them that survival wasn't thanks to him alone, but thanks to unexpected help from a mage who jumped suddenly into the battlefield from nowhere. He explained that this intruder managed to take down the traitor and the hostile mage, and even succeeded in capturing Garuda as well. Senten began connecting events together, her suspicions turning towards that mysterious boy they met earlier. Recalling what happened, Ryan was using his green magic circles with superior skill, and he recalled Kornak. Garuda fell to the ground, screaming in pain. Kennel recognized him, calling him by his name, wondering why he was there. She told him he wasn't just a passing boy, but an assassin from the famous Martong Guild. Kennel was surprised by that information. This explained to him why the mage accompanying him fell so easily before the skills of a professional assassin. Garuda tried desperately to beg for his life after knowing his opponent's identity, offering to pay double the amount promised by the other party, and even triple. He mocked her, pointing out that the cunning Senten Rose pulled some tricks, reminding him of Asan's policy, which gives priority to the client's gold only regardless of the person. Rian interrupted his chatter, describing him as annoying. He refused to be treated as a cheap assassin who can be bought with money, dealing a fatal blow that ended his life immediately. He then turned to Senten Rose with eyes glowing with a veiled threat, scolding her for treating him as a cheap assassin. He asked her if she truly realized the type of reward she promised, confirming to her in a sharp tone that the Martong Guild does not sit idly by when someone tries to evade payment. He confirmed her good knowledge of the Assassination Guild's nature and reputation. She answered with tension and stuttering in the affirmative. He softened his tone slightly, explaining he didn't intend to collect the price currently because he understood the family's current situation. But he asked her clearly to submit a formal request to the Martong Guild regarding the promised 30 gold pieces. As for the rest of the account, he indicated that a verbal contract would be sufficient, provided it remained a secret between them only. She agreed, reluctantly nodding her head, so he ordered them to gather themselves and continue their way towards their destination, reassuring them that there would be no more pursuers. He pledged to arrange the disposal of the bodies through Martong after their departure, advising them that if border guards asked what happened, they should claim they were attacked by bandits, an excuse that would be understandable, while the guards noticed his way of handling matters became more cruel and comprehensive in an awe-inspiring way. They confirmed their commitment to his instructions, acknowledging the precision of his work. While he was about to leave, Kennel called him, trying to say something, but he sufficed with a mysterious smile and vanished suddenly using a fast movement skill, leaving green smoke behind. Gayan stood stunned by his disappearance, wondering if he had truly left, realizing he was undoubtedly an assassin from Martong. But Kennel realized within himself that the matter didn't stop there, and that there was a bigger secret. He recalled the battle details in his mind, remembering that the entity summoned by Ryan wasn't just a normal undead. It was clear, despite the short time, that creature spoke human language clearly, and it managed to defeat Shiso and the mage almost simultaneously and with amazing speed. He reached a terrifying truth, which was that a person capable of commanding an undead of that level of power could not be just an ordinary assassin.